Okay, hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. The support on this series has been unreal lately, and I want to say a massive thank you. In today's episode, we have so many awesome myths that you guys suggested on the last episode, so just like always, if you do have a myth you would like me to test in the next or future episodes of the Fortnite Mythbusters, make sure to go down in the comments and drop a comment of that myth for a pretty good chance to be featured. As well, if you are new to my channel or you come back pretty frequently and you are a part of that 80% of my viewers who are not subscribed to the channel, feel free to consider subscribing and turning on those post notifications. We're trying to hit 1 mil by the end of the year. That would be insane. As well, don't forget to leave a like on today's episode. Let's see if we can smash 20,000 likes. That would be insane. But without further ado, let's get right on in to today's video. Kicking things off, jumping straight into the first myth. The first myth is, do henchmen heal in Slurpy Swamp's water? Now, this myth was pretty difficult to do because I had to use a fishing rod in order to kind of pull the shadow henchman from, you know, the place that he automatically stands and kind of takes guard, all the way to the water in Slurpy Swamps where you would actually regain health as well as shield. After a long time battling back and forth with a shadow henchman, you know, to get him to this location to actually heal in the water, I then knocked him down. And you know, when you get shot and you're on the ground, you have no shield at all. You just have 100 HP and that's it. To my surprise, when I actually pickaxed the henchman while he was, you know, in the middle of the water, knocked down on the ground, the shield actually cracked and the damage rating was also blue, therefore kind of showing that he actually does heal in Slurpy Swamp's water. Going into the next myth, and another pretty similar myth. This myth is, when a henchman kills you in an arena game, will the henchman gain shield because of siphon? Now, I thought this was actually a very good myth, and it got a whole ton of support on the last video, so I definitely had to try it out for you guys. Firstly, I dropped into an arena game with my second account, which is on my phone, you know, acting as if it's my teammate, and then I also got myself a suppressed blue scar. With this weapon, I went over to a henchman and kind of took note of how many body shots it would actually take to, you know, knock the henchman onto the ground, and the answer to that was 5 shots. From there, we went over to a brand new henchman. This henchman didn't take any damage at all. He was full HP. Everything was perfectly fine with this henchman, and I let him fully kill my second account. He would knock it, then my second account bled out, therefore, you know, giving him the 50 health or siphon that you usually would get in an arena game. Ignore the victory royale symbol up at the top. That's just because of custom matchmaking. But when I shot the ghost henchman after he got the siphon, surprisingly, it actually did grant him the 50 HP. It took 7 shots instead of 5 shots, which you know, 30 damage per shot, 60. So it totally makes sense, and I was not expecting that. This was definitely something that I did not know, and I guess it could help you out in game. I wouldn't really think too much about it though. Going into the next myth is, since Deadpool isn't really shadow or ghost and there's just ghost henchmen on his yacht, will he attack a shadow henchman or a player who is disguised as a shadow henchman? I thought this was actually a pretty interesting myth because Deadpool, it wasn't really a boss that was introduced into season 2 until, you know, late season 2 or whatever. It was more of like a kind of like a special event. And to be quite honest, I don't really know if Deadpool really has a shide, which is shadow or ghost, so I thought this myth was worth testing out, and it seemed to get a lot of support on the last episode anyways. When I tried this myth out, I landed at the Grotto, which is a shadow agency where a bunch of shadow henchmen are. I then disguised myself as a shadow henchman and flew all the way over to the yacht, and I tried to find Deadpool, and to my surprise, Deadpool would actually shoot at me as well as all of the ghost henchmen. I was actually pretty shocked because I could have sworn before you were able to disguise as Deadpool at the yacht in the disguise booth and all of the ghost henchmen will shoot at you, but they don't shoot at Deadpool himself. So I don't know, I thought this was something pretty interesting and a lot of people wanted me to test it out anyways. Going into the next myth, and a myth that might help you out in a real game. This myth is, what happens when you harpoon someone while they're gliding in midair? So I tested this myth out on both my teammate as well as someone who is on the opposite team, you know, like an enemy obviously, and both of the outcomes were pretty interesting. So firstly, when you would harpoon your teammate who you know, is gliding, it would have no effect at all. The harpoon would automatically get sent back to your gun, and I don't think it would take any damage to the gun as well. It won't use one of your like 1 out of 10 uses. And this was the exact same thing as well if you were to harpoon your teammate before he even pulls out his glider, you know, like when he's in the skydiving mode. Now for the enemy, whenever you would harpoon them while they have their glider out, it will still do the 75 damage, and it'll also pull them out of their glider, but they will not take any fall damage. no matter how high they are. This is also the exact same thing that happens when they are in the skydiving mode. If you do harpoon them, it'll automatically pull them out of the skydiving mode, and they will kind of just fall down to the ground, but they will not take any fall damage, which I thought was totally weird. Now, before all of you guys say this was creative and fall damage was actually off, no, it was on when I tested this myth out, and I even jumped to my death and died immediately from the same height. Going into the next myth, and a super highly requested myth. This myth is, when you equip a pet then throw a decoy down, can you actually pet your decoy's pet? Now, this myth actually grants no competitive advantage at all. It was just something cool to test out, and I've never seen anybody try this out at all before either. Firstly, I had to go into my locker and I had to equip a pet, so I just had a dog in my backpack. I really don't have many of these pets. They're not really in the battle passes anymore. In the battle passes that they were popular in, I did not buy for some reason. Don't ask me why. After searching around for a very long time in a custom matchmaking game, I managed to find myself some decoy grenades, and I kind of boxed myself in, then threw down the decoy grenades, and surprisingly, you are able to pet your decoy's pet. The crazy thing to know is that you actually will unlock an achievement as well. If you haven't unlocked this achievement already, with a regular player, if you throw down your own decoy, you will get the achievement called Agent Good Boy. And unfortunately, it didn't stay for me because I was in a custom matchmaking. But if you're one of those players that likes to hunt for achievements, this might be an easy way to get it for yourself. Going into the next myth is, do healing and shield items like minis and big pots and med kits, when thrown, will they bounce off of crash pads? Now, I thought this was actually a pretty good myth, because if you don't know already, if you throw a crash pad, then another crash pad, then another crash pad, you could actually bounce the crash pads off one another, and they could go a pretty far distance. When I tried this myth out in game, I tried it with every single healing item that I could find, including the bandage bazooka, and no matter what, no matter if it was bandages, a med kit, a big pot, mini pots, the items will still bounce off of the crash pads onto one another. This is actually a very good thing to know if you're ever in the middle of a gunfight and there is a crash pad in between you and your teammate, and you need to give them some shield, but they are a little bit out of your throwing distance. Just make sure to throw it on the crash pad. Something to keep in mind though, if you do shoot a bandage bazooka onto the crash pad, you will never ever see that that bandage ever again. It'll kind of launch really high and far into the air, and then it'll just end up despawning. I was never able to actually find it after it landed. Going into the next myth is, what happens when two shadow bosses finally meet each other? Now, I can't tell you how many times this myth was actually requested, because in our last episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters, we tested to see what exactly happens when Ghost Midas meets up with Shadow Meowscles, and the outcome to that one was pretty interesting and something I suggest you all go check out. If you were actually sent me this footage, so massive shout out to Fortmates on YouTube. They managed to get Shadow Boss Meowscles to actually meet up with Shadow Boss Brutus, and the outcome was crazy. Now, surprisingly, the bosses, they don't really even notice each other. If one another are knocked on the ground, they will just kind of pick each other up. They act the exact same way a Shadow Henchman would with another Shadow Henchman, or the boss would with their own kind. So like Midas with the Ghost Henchman, as well as Shadow Brutus with a Shadow Henchman. I know there were a couple of other YouTubers who have tested this one out before, but I decided to feature it on my channel as well, because it's kind of what I do, and a lot of you guys really wanted to see it as well. Going into the next myth, and surprisingly, this myth got over 1,000 likes on the last episode. This myth is, what happens when someone harpoons you while you're grappling away? So when I tried this myth out, obviously I was in a creative game. I didn't have Sky's grappler, but the grappler compared to Sky's grappler is the exact same. In creative, you could set it to be infinite as well. But honestly, nothing too crazy happens, except the harpoon gun will kind of, deny you from doing any type of grappling, even if you're in mid-air, or if you're, grappling to the actual wall while the grappler is still attached. It'll automatically cut out that animation. Basically, the exact same thing that happened on earlier in the episode where we tried it out with a glider. You know how that would just kind of, ignore the animation totally, and it'll kind of drop you onto the ground. That's exactly what this does as well. Anyways, guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today's episode. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, make sure to leave a like, and also subscribe to the channel if you are new. Turn on those post notifications to never miss another episodes of the Fortnite Mythbusters. As well, guys, make sure to go drop me a follow on Twitter, Instagram, as well as Twitch. I've been live streaming a lot recently, but anyways, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.